to get out in front of this and tried to persuade Netflix not to come forward with it. I think it's an interesting argument because what they're claiming is, Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, has had a longstanding, animosity against Diddy and sort of vice versa. And because he's at the helm, they're arguing this can't be taken seriously. This should sort of be seen as propaganda. And one of the things that Netflix hit back with was, yes, he's the executive producer. He doesn't necessarily have creative control. And that's something
Interestingly, we haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic, evidence.
We're watching a scandal unfold in real time. One that's not just about a single man's downfall, but about the unraveling of an entire system. And at the center of it all is a question that's getting harder to ignore. How deep does this go? Because what started as whispers about Sean Diddy Combs has now exploded into a full-blown crisis, with federal charges, cryptic tapes, and a growing list of names, some of them the biggest in music, caught in the crossfire. This isn't just about the past, it's about what's happening right now, as new evidence surfaces, alliances shatter, and the industry braces for what could be its most damaging reckoning yet. The latest bombshell comes from an unexpected source, 50 Cent, who isn't just watching from the sidelines anymore. He's actively funding accusers, acquiring assets tied to Diddy's empire, and, according to insiders, holding on to evidence so explosive it could ensure Combs never walks free again. But here's the twist. This isn't just about justice. It's a calculated dismantling, a chess game where every move is designed to cripple Diddy's influence permanently. And the most chilling part? The tapes. Not just any recordings, but footage allegedly involving underage stars like Justin Bieber and Usher at Diddy's infamous gatherings. The implications are staggering, because if these claims hold up, we're not just talking about one man's crimes. We're talking about a network of complicity that stretches to the highest levels of the entertainment world.
Now, you take 50, somebody who didn't win diamond, somebody who's still going on tours, somebody who's always been the opposition to Puff. When you seen 50 show those funeral flowers that he got from Diddy, this has been an ongoing thing with them, and it's never gonna stop.
Let's rewind just a few weeks. Federal agents raided Diddy's homes in LA and Miami back in March 2024, but the fallout didn't stop there. Since then, we've seen a domino effect. Usher unfollowed on social media, Justin Bieber's name resurfacing in old clips where Diddy joked about things you don't talk about on national television. And now, the emergence of Day 26's Quay Mosley, whose tearful interviews have added a new layer of horror to the story. Quay didn't just describe trauma. He described a system, one where loyalty was weaponized, where private moments were recorded, and where the line between mentorship and exploitation blurred into something far darker. His account of waking up in a basement bedroom, disoriented and filmed, with Diddy and others laughing nearby, isn't just a personal nightmare, it's a pattern. And patterns like this don't exist in isolation. Then there's the email, the one Day 26 members say they received from Diddy himself, filled with cryptic references to sacrificial acts. They wouldn't reveal the full contents, but the fear in their voices said enough.
So, Q of Day 26, they were on Making the Band 4. He has finally come out and had a conversation about why he was so upset and crying in a lot of his interviews talking about Diddy and that whole conversation. Yeah. And he is making some really huge allegations against Dawn.
This wasn't just corporate intimidation. It was something designed to instill terror, to make sure no one spoke out. And for years, it worked. Until now. Because what we're seeing isn't just a few brave voices coming forward, it's a dam breaking. Cassie Ventura's lawsuit was the first crack. The federal charges widened it. And now, with 50 Cent's documentary, Sean Combs' The Reckoning dropping on Netflix, complete with never-before-seen footage of Diddy strategizing with his legal team, we're getting a front-row seat to the collapse of a carefully constructed facade. But here's where things get even more unsettling. The tapes, the ones 50 Cent claims to have, the ones insiders say Diddy used as leverage for decades. If they exist, and if they show what sources suggest, they wouldn't just implicate Diddy. They'd drag in anyone who ever attended his parties, anyone who ever turned a blind eye, anyone who ever benefited from his protection. And that list? It's long. We're talking A-list names, industry titans, people who've built careers on the very system Diddy allegedly corrupted. Usher's already spoken about the wild things he saw at Diddy's home as a teenager. Justin Bieber's past interactions with Combs are now under a microscope. And let's not forget the white parties, the legendary, invite-only events where, according to multiple lawsuits, the sparkling drink was spiked, the cameras were rolling, and the rules didn't apply to anyone but Diddy.
In the book, Porter allegedly recounts discovering and making copies of the tapes that Diddy made of himself having with young boys that he was managing, including an alleged tape involving an 18-year-old pop star.
The timing of all this isn't accidental. Diddy's trial is set for May 2025, but the court of public opinion is in session right now. Every new interview, every resurfaced clip, every deleted tweet, it's all part of a narrative that's being shaped in real time. And 50 Cent isn't just a bystander in this, he's an architect. by funding accusers, by producing documentaries, by hinting at evidence that could end Diddy. He's not just exposing a rival. He's rewriting the rules of how power is challenged in this industry. Because let's be clear, this isn't just about Diddy's crimes. It's about who knew, who stayed silent, and who's still protecting him. Take Don Richard, for example.
Come out and collect everybody's phone. So now it's just your word against a billionaire. You're gonna lose. Read this right there from that young man.
The former Danity Kane singer was quick to deny Quay's claims that she sedated him at Diddy's Hamptons home, calling the allegations categorically false. But her statement raised more questions than it answered. If Quay's account is true, and his emotional breakdowns suggest he believes it is, then Dawn wasn't just a bystander. She was part of the mechanism. And if she's lying, that means the web of complicity goes even deeper than we thought. Because here's the thing about systems like Diddy's. They don't function without enablers. People who look the other way. People who hand out pills. People who hold the camera steady while someone else's life is destroyed. Then there's the money. Diddy's empire wasn't just built on hits. It was built on control. Artists signed to Bad Boy have spoken for years about the lack of ownership over their own music, about the threats that kept them in line. But now, with Diddy's legal troubles mounting, we're seeing a different kind of financial warfare. 50 Cent isn't just exposing him, he's acquiring pieces of his empire. Sources say he's been quietly buying up publishing rights, snapping up assets, and positioning himself to profit from the fallout. It's a power move straight out of the hip-hop playbook. Destroy your enemy, then take what's left. And if the tapes are real, that's the nuclear option. Because in an industry where reputation is everything, those recordings wouldn't just end careers, they'd end legacies. But let's talk about the tapes.
No, it looks like whatever Justin is doing, and I'm not going to show it out of just respect for the fact that I truly believe that Justin Bieber is a victim. But whatever he is doing in this video with Trey Songz and Odell Beckham Jr. looks highly suspicious.
The ones that allegedly show Bieber and Usher in compromising situations. The ones that, if released, would force the public to confront an uncomfortable truth. That some of their favorite stars weren't just in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were part of the machine. Usher's already distanced himself, unfollowing Diddy's inner circle and staying silent on the allegations. Bieber? His team hasn't commented, but the old clips, where Diddy jokes about 48 hours of crazy and things you don't talk about, take on a new, sinister meaning in this context. Because if Diddy was recording everything, then those jokes might not have been jokes at all. They might have been warnings. And that brings us to the most terrifying question of all. Who else is on those tapes? Because Diddy's parties weren't small affairs. They were industry events.
I don't know this, but it just seems very suspicious when you go through and you look at in the history of different people that can make you go away if you listen, I've worried about some of the things that I talk about on my show.
The guest lists read like a who's who of music, sports, and Hollywood. If the footage exists, it's not just Diddy's secret to keep. It's a time bomb. And right now, 50 Cent might be the one holding the detonator. The other piece of this puzzle? The timing. Diddy's arrest came just as his legal team was scrambling to contain the fallout from Cassie's lawsuit. Then the federal charges dropped, then the raids, then the documentaries. It's almost as if someone, maybe multiple someones, decided it was time to pull the plug. And if 50 Cent is involved, you can bet this isn't just about justice. It's about power. About sending a message. Cross me and I'll bury you. Because let's not forget, 50 and Diddy have been enemies for years. This isn't just a takedown, it's a reckoning. And if the tapes are as damaging as insiders claim, we might be looking at the biggest scandal in music history. But here's what we haven't talked about yet. The fear.
He cornered me. And then he asked me, with his arm up, he asked me, "How you doing?" I'm kind of like, wow, what the heck? Very uncomfortable. And then he rubbed his hand down my breast. He said, "If you need anything at all, you let me know."
The kind that keeps people silent for decades. Quay Mosley didn't just describe trauma. He described a system designed to break people. A system where saying no wasn't an option, where the price of speaking out was your career, your reputation, maybe even your life. And if that's true, then the real question isn't just about Diddy. It's about everyone who ever benefited from his silence. The executives who looked the other way, the artists who stayed quiet, the media that turned his parties into legend without asking what happened behind closed doors. Because this isn't just about one man's crimes. It's about an industry that let it happen. And if the tapes come out, if the names start dropping, if the dominoes keep falling, we might finally see just how many people were willing to sell their souls to keep the party going. Right now, Diddy's sitting in a jail cell, his empire crumbling around him. But the story's far from over. Because the tapes, they're still out there. And the people who know what's on them, they're starting to talk. The thing about systems like Diddy's is that they don't operate in a vacuum. They require an entire ecosystem of enablers. People who look the other way, who sign the checks, who laugh at the jokes they shouldn't, who make sure the right doors stay closed.
Bankman Fried were in the unit that was one floor above mine. So in terms of like the setting, it's a fairly decent chance that the room I'm describing is similar to where Diddy
Interesting.
is. Yeah.
And now, as the walls close in on Combs, those same people are scrambling. Because if the tapes exist, if the emails are real, if the accounts from Q and Cassie and the others hold up in court, then this isn't just Diddy's reckoning, it's theirs too. We're talking about lawyers who drafted ironclad NDAs, executives who greenlit projects despite the whispers, publicists who spun the stories, and even other artists who stayed silent because the alternative was career sabotage. And let's be real, some of them weren't just bystanders, they were participants. Take the white parties, for example. Those weren't just exclusive gatherings, they were carefully curated power plays. The guest lists read like a who's who of the industry: Jay-Z and Beyonce, Mariah Carey, Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian, even political figures and athletes. And now, as the lawsuits pile up, with allegations of spiked drinks, hidden cameras, and coercion, the question isn't just what Diddy did, it's what everyone else saw.
So the whole thing about why I'm not in the thing, the lady was talking greasy to me. She had no right to talk greasy to me. And then she told me that 50 didn't have the power to do anything, but they using his name to like push the whole documentary. And that's what it was about.
Because you don't host events like that for decades without people noticing the red flags. So where were the warnings? Where were the interventions? Or did everyone just decide it was easier to play along? Because in Hollywood, silence isn't just golden, it's a currency. And right now, that currency is crashing. Then there's the media. For years, outlets treated Diddy's parties like legendary aspirational events. The photos, the recaps, the breathless coverage, all of it helped build the myth. But now, as the lawsuits describe a much darker reality, those same publications are scrambling to rewrite history. Headlines that once celebrated his unmatched influence now ask how he got away with it for so long. And let's not forget the role of platforms like Vlad TV, which gave Quay and Day 26 a space to speak, but only after the legal dominoes had already started falling. Because here's the thing about scandals. They don't erupt overnight. They simmer for years, ignored or dismissed, until the pressure becomes too great. And by then, it's not just one person's reputation on the line, it's an entire industry's. But the most damning pattern isn't just the allegations, it's the repetition.
Referred to me as Wild King Nights. And what a Wild King Night was when him and a guest would go to a hotel room or be at his home, his bedroom, and they would have intimate gatherings. I would have to go and prep that hotel room, which consisted of baby oil, Astroglide.
Because this isn't the first time we've heard stories like this. Back in the 90s, there were whispers about Diddy's inner circle, about the way he controlled artists, about the parties that blurred lines no one should cross. And yet, nothing changed. Fast forward to 2017, when Cassie Ventura's lawsuit first surfaced, and again, the industry closed ranks. It took years, and a federal indictment, for people to start taking it seriously. And now, as more names emerge, as more tapes are rumored to exist, we're seeing the same script play out with new actors. The only difference? This time, the stakes are higher, because the people involved aren't just up-and-coming artists, they're global superstars. And if the public turns on them, the fallout won't just be personal. It'll be financial, it'll be cultural, it'll be irreversible. Let's talk about the money for a second. Diddy's empire wasn't just built on music, it was built on branding. C-Rock, Sean John, Revolt TV, Bad Boy Records, each venture was a piece of a machine designed to make him untouchable. But now, as the legal battles rage, those same ventures are becoming liabilities.
So maybe the judge is going to give him more than time served.
But we should say that the maximum he could get is 20 years.
And that's what I want to get into for a minute. Because this is some racist you-know-what, this man act.
C-Rock has already distanced itself. Revolt's future is in question. And Bad Boy? The label that launched careers is now a ghost ship, with artists either fleeing or staying silent. Because here's the thing about power. It's only as strong as the people who prop it up. And right now, those people are jumping ship. But the real financial threat isn't just to Diddy, it's to everyone who profited from his system. The executives who took cuts, the investors who looked the other way, the brands that paid for his endorsement. If the tapes come out, if the lawsuits succeed, they're not just coming for Combs, they're coming for the entire infrastructure that let him thrive. And that's where the panic sets in. Because if Diddy falls, he won't fall alone. We're already seeing the cracks. Usher's Super Bowl performance was supposed to be a triumph, until the Diddy connections resurfaced, and suddenly, his past statements about wild experiences at Combs' home took on a new meaning. Justin Bieber's team has gone radio silent, but the old clips of him joking with Diddy about 48 hours of crazy are circulating like wildfire. And then there's Jay-Z, who's stayed quiet so far, but whose name keeps coming up in connection to Diddy's parties. If the feds start digging deeper, if more tapes surface, if the public decides they've had enough, the dominoes won't just fall, they'll crash. Because in an industry built on image, the one thing you can't recover from is being on the wrong side of a scandal this big. But here's what's really fascinating, the way the enablers are now turning on each other. Dawn Richards' denial of Huey's allegations wasn't just a defense, it was a signal, a warning to others that the narrative is being controlled. But then she deleted the tweet, which only made it look guiltier. Meanwhile, former associates like Stevie J and Ray J, who once benefited from Diddy's machine, are now giving interviews, carefully distancing themselves while still hinting at what they saw. It's a high-wire act. Say enough to seem transparent, but not so much that you implicate yourself. Because in a scandal like this, the second wave of casualties won't be the main players. It'll be the people who were close enough to know, but not powerful enough to be untouchable.
Look at how many people he affected negatively. That was his trade-off to gain what he had. His former bodyguard, Gene Deal, said he seen him doing a ritual with a dove. What is that? And I feel like it's being overlooked because they see him doing the dance moves with the baggy clothes. You know, some of the ladies in his videos were trans ladies.
And let's not forget the lawyers, the ones who drafted the settlements, who buried the complaints, who made sure the NDAs were airtight. Right now, they're the ones sweating the most. Because if the feds start flipping witnesses, if the civil cases start uncovering documents, those lawyers won't just be defending Diddy, they'll be defending themselves. And in a world where the line between legal strategy and obstruction is razor thin, that's a dangerous place to be. Because the one thing worse than being complicit, being the one who helped cover it up. But the most chilling part of all this isn't the past, it's the present. Because while we're all focused on Diddy, on the tapes, on the lawsuits, the machine is still running, the parties are still happening, the power dynamics are still in place. The only difference? Now, everyone's looking over their shoulder. Because if Diddy could fall this hard, this fast, then no one is safe. And that's the real story here. Not just one man's downfall, but the realization that the entire system is rotten. That the people we idolize, the industries we consume, the stories we're sold, they're all built on secrets someone's willing to silence to keep. So where does that leave us? With more questions than answers.
Same kind of extortion that we heard when Cassie took the stand and testified on that airplane ride back from France. Diddy said, "You don't do a freak off, I'm going to release one of the freak off videos that you are profiled in and humiliate."
Because if the tapes are real, who else is on them? If the emails exist, who else was copied? If the parties were as dark as the lawsuits claim, who else was in the room? And most importantly, who's next? Because scandals like this don't end with one arrest. They end with a reckoning. And right now, the reckoning is just getting started. We've seen this movie before. The whispers, the denials, the slow unraveling. But this time, the stakes are higher, the names are bigger, and the secrets, they're not staying buried. So tell us, who do you think is sweating the most right now? Who's the next name we'll see in the headlines? And when the dust settles, will anything in this industry ever be the same? Drop your theories below, because this story is far from over. And trust us, you're not going to want to miss what happens next. Stay sharp, stay curious, and as always, keep watching. The truth is coming, and it's going to be brutal.